I need you pregnant in 6 months or your brother dies screaming. Elena Vance had been awake for 11 seconds. Her hands were still shaking from the phone screen they shoved in her face, her little brother tied to a chair. Blood crusted under his nose, the timestamp reading 20 minutes ago. And now a 65-year-old man in a gray suit was offering her a pen. Before we go further, please subscribe to the channel and stay with me all the way to the end of this story. Drop the name of your city in the comments so I can see how far this story has traveled tonight. Because what Elena signed at 3:14 that morning was not what she thought she was signing. The pounding started at 2:47 in the morning, and Elena Vance knew immediately that it was not a neighbor. Neighbors knocked. Neighbors apologized through the door. This was something else. This was the sound of a fist that had already decided the door was going to open one way or another. She sat up in the dark of her apartment above the shuttered laundromat on Dauphine Street, her heart going so hard she could feel it in her teeth. Her first thought was not fear. Her first thought was Theo. It was always Theo. Miss Vance. A man's voice through the door, flat and unhurried, like he was reading a name off a delivery slip. Open up. We are not here to hurt you. I'm calling the police. You could? A pause. Your brother probably has about 40 minutes. Some of that is going to get used up while you explain the situation to a dispatcher. Elena's hand stopped halfway to the phone on her nightstand. What did you say? Look at your peephole, Miss Vance. She crossed the room barefoot, her mother's old sweatshirt hanging off one shoulder, the lead solder still black under her fingernails from the church window she had been repairing until 11 o'clock that night. She put her eye to the glass and saw two men in dark suits standing in her hallway like they were waiting for an elevator. The taller one lifted a phone toward the peephole. Elena would remember the next 4 seconds for the rest of her life. Her brother Theo, 24 years old, the boy who still called her every Sunday, was sitting in a metal chair with his wrists behind him. His left eye was swollen closed. There was blood dried in a line from his nose to his chin. He was crying, and the worst part, the part that went into Elena like a nail, was that he was crying quietly, like someone who had been told what happened if he was loud. The timestamp in the corner read 2:26 a.m. He's alive, the taller man said. How long that stays true depends on what you do in the next 30 seconds. Elena's fingers went to the deadbolt, then stopped. Who are you with, Miss Vance? No, her voice cracked, but she kept going. You want me to open this door? Fine. But you tell me who you work for first, because if I'm going to be stupid tonight, I want to at least know whose fault it is. There was a silence on the other side. Then unexpectedly, something that might have been a small laugh from the shorter man. Mr. Castellane, the taller one said. Elena's stomach dropped straight through the floor. Everyone in New Orleans knew that name, the way everyone knows the name of a hurricane that hit before they were born. Castellane was the docks. Castellane was half the construction on the riverside. Castellane was the reason certain restaurants never got inspected and certain buildings burned on schedule. Theo doesn't know anybody like that, she said. He does now. 30 seconds is up in 11. She opened the door. They let her get dressed. That was the strange thing. The shorter one, the one with the scar running from his ear to his collar, actually turned his back while she pulled on jeans and a sweater, and when she came out, he looked at her shoes and said, "Wear something better than that. These are my shoes. You are meeting the boss. Then he can meet my shoes." The taller one's mouth twitched. Gabriel, he said, offering his name like they were at a party. That is Renaud. He does not like meeting people. Do not take it personally. Are you going to kill me? No. Are you going to kill my brother? Gabriel took his time with that one, which frightened her more than a fast answer would have. That is not my decision, he said. In the car, Elena did the math. Theo was a junior accountant at a shipping firm on Poydras. He made $41,000 a year. He drove a 14-year-old Corolla with a cracked bumper. He had a girlfriend named Marisol who made him do yoga on Saturdays, which he hated, which he did anyway. There was no version of Theo Vance that owed money to a man like Castellane. It was like being told your goldfish had gotten into a knife fight. How much, she asked. Gabriel watched the road. 3.4. 3.4 what? Million, Elena laughed. It came out of her before she could stop it. One ugly bark of a laugh, and then she pressed her hand over her mouth because she realized she was about to be sick. That's not possible. Mr. Castellane will explain. No, you don't understand. That is not a number my brother could reach. That is not a number my brother could reach if he tried on purpose for 10 years. Miss Vance. He puts his lunch on a spreadsheet. Her voice was climbing and she could not get it back down. He puts his lunch on a spreadsheet so he doesn't overspend. Gabriel finally looked at her in the mirror, and for 1 second, something moved behind his eyes that almost looked like pity. Then you should ask that question, he said, tonight, out loud, to his face. She did not understand what he meant. She would. The building on the river was a converted grain warehouse with no sign on it, and inside it did not look like a warehouse at all. It looked like a place where men decided things. Leather brick a bar that belonged in a different century and a silence that felt like it was being maintained on purpose. Elena stood in the middle of it with her arms crossed and refused to sit down. She heard the elevator before she saw him. Rafael Castellane was 65 years old, and he did not walk into a room so much as arrive in it. Silver hair combed back, charcoal three-piece suit at 3 in the morning, which told her he had not been asleep either. And his eyes were the thing gray and steady and completely unhurried, the eyes of a man who had never once in his life had to rush a conversation. Miss Vance, he said. His voice was low and rough at the edges, like something dragged across gravel a long time ago. Thank you for coming. I was invited by 2 men in a hostage video. Yes. He crossed to the bar and poured himself 2 fingers of something amber. He did not offer her any. I am aware of how it looked. I am not going to insult you by pretending it was anything else. Where's my brother? Alive, sedated, under a doctor's care, which is more than he has earned tonight. He hasn't earned anything, he's 24. So was I, Raphael said, when I did the worst thing I have ever done. That stopped her. He took a sip, watching her over the rim of the glass. Sit down, Miss Vance. No. You have been awake for 20 minutes. You are running on adrenaline, and it is about to leave you all at once. When it does, you are going to feel your knees go. I would prefer that not happen in front of my men. I said no. Raphael studied her for a long moment, and then unexpectedly he nodded once like she had passed something. All right, he said, then we will both stand. He laid it out the way a surgeon lays out instruments. $3.4 million drawn down over 6 months through a bonded shipping account that Theo Vance had signature authority over. Loans against cargo that did not exist. Insurance filed on containers that had never left Veracruz. Documentation approved, initialed, and countersigned. Show me, Elena said. You want to see the file? I want to see my brother's name. He opened a drawer, took out a folder, and slid it down the length of the bar toward her. She shot it with both hands. She flipped it open, and there it was. Theo's signature. That stupid loop he put on the T because he thought it looked professional. Elena had watched him practice it in high school on the back of a math test. 4 documents, 4 signatures. Something in the back of Elena's mind went very quiet and very still. The way it did when she was holding a piece of 1,000-year-old glass, and something about the light through it was wrong. She did not know why yet. She closed the folder. He didn't do this, Miss Vance. I know what you are going to say. Everybody's brother didn't do it. Everybody's brother, Raphael agreed, signed his name 4 times. Then let me talk to him. You will, in a moment. He set his glass down. But first I'm going to make you an offer, and I want you to hear all of it before you react, because your first reaction is going to be to throw something at me, and I like this glass. Say it. I am dying. Elena blinked. That is not a negotiating tactic. He went on in exactly the same tone. Pancreatic carcinoma, in remission at the moment. My doctors give me 4 years if I am fortunate, and my doctors have never once been generous with me. Do you understand what happens to a man like me when the word gets out? People come for you. People are already coming for me. He almost smiled. What happens is worse than that. Everything I built comes apart, not because I am loved, Miss Vance, because I am load-bearing. There are roughly 900 families in this city who eat because of contracts I hold in place with my name and my breathing. When I stop, they get eaten. That is not my problem. No, he said, it is not. Your problem is your brother. Elena's jaw tightened. So here is my offer. 1 year of marriage, 1 child, legitimate mine, publicly acknowledged and heired with a name that can hold what I built together after I am gone. At the end of the year, your brother's debt is erased. He walks away clean, and you receive $10 million and the right to walk away yourself with or without the child. Your choice in writing. The room was very quiet. You want to buy a womb, Elena said. I want to buy a future. The womb is the mechanism. You're insane. I am running out of time, Raphael said, which looks identical from the outside. She did throw something, not the glass, the folder. It hit the bar and slid off and pages went across the floor, and neither of them moved to pick them up. You don't get to do this, she said, and her voice was shaking now and she hated it. You don't get to snatch a 24-year-old kid off the street and use him as a crowbar to get into my body. You don't. I know. Don't agree with me. Why would I lie about it? He said it almost gently. I am not asking you to think I am a good man. I have not been a good man since 1984, and I do not intend to start tonight for your comfort. I am asking you to look at two doors and pick the one your brother survives. And if I say no, Raphael was silent. Say it, Elena said, out loud. Say what happens to Theo if I say no, because if you're going to make me choose, you're going to have the guts to say the thing you're threatening me with. For the first time all night, something in his face moved. He dies, Raphael said, publicly, as an example, and you spend the rest of your life doing arithmetic about it at 3 in the morning. Elena's eyes burned. She did not let them do anything else. You're a monster. Yes. Say it like you mean it. I am a monster, Raphael said, who is offering you a choice. Most people who stand where you are standing do not get one. She picked up the pages herself. Nobody helped her. She sat on the floor of that warehouse in her mother's sweatshirt and read a contract at 3 in the morning, like it was a lease. 12 months from the date of marriage. Shared residence. Public appearance of legitimacy. DNA confirmation of paternity. Termination clause. Miscarriage clause, which was a 3-month extension to try again, and reading that one made her put the page down and breathe through her nose for a while. Then she stood up. I want to add something. Raphael raised an eyebrow. This is not a negotiation. Then call it a correction. She walked toward him, and she was aware that she was 5'4" and he was 6'2", and that neither of those facts mattered right now. Page 9 says I fulfill the physical terms of the arrangement. I want a handwritten clause. In your hand, signed and initialed. Saying what? That you never touch me without my consent. Not in 6 months. Not in 6 years. Not ever. If I don't consent, we go medical. Clinic, doctors, needles, whatever it takes. My body is mine until I personally say otherwise. And if you ever break that, the contract is void and your heir goes with me. Renaud, standing by the door, actually turned his head. Raphael Castellane looked at her for a long, long moment. You are setting terms, he said, with a man who could have you killed for the inconvenience. You called yourself a businessman. Twice. Elena did not blink. So do business. Both parties have rights, or neither does. I am telling you my mind now, so there is no confusion later, because I have watched men get confused later my entire life. The silence stretched. Then Raphael reached inside his jacket, took out a fountain pen, turned to page 9, and began to write. He wrote it in full. Every word she had said, in a small, precise hand, and at the end, he initialed it and dated it and turned the page around so she could read it. Anything else, Miss Vance? Elena's throat was tight. Yeah, she said. I want to see my brother before I sign anything. They took her to a room on the second floor where a woman in scrubs was checking Theo's blood pressure. He was awake. When he saw her, his face came apart. Ellie, no. No. Why are you here? Why did they bring you here? Hey. She got to the bed and put both hands on his face. Hey, look at me. Breathe. You have to go. You have to go right now. You don't understand who these people are. I understand exactly who these people are. Her thumbs wiped under his eyes. Theo, listen to me. I need you to tell me the truth one time, and I will never ask you again, and I will not be angry no matter what it is. Did you take that money? No, Theo. Ellie, I swear on Mom. His voice broke on the word. I swear on Mom. I have never seen those accounts. I don't have clearance for those accounts. I'm second desk. I reconcile freight invoices. I couldn't move $3.4 million if I tried for a year. They showed me your signature 4 times. I know. His good eye was wide and wet and absolutely terrified. I know they showed me too, and Ellie, that's the part I can't. He stopped, swallowed. That's the part I can't explain. It's my signature. It is actually my signature, and I never signed it. And there it was again. That small, quiet thing in the back of Elena's mind, the thing that had gone still when she held the folder downstairs. A signature you sign 4 times does not come out the same way 4 times. Not the loop, not the pressure, not the drag at the end of the stroke. She spent her whole working life reading the difference between a repair made in 1890 and a repair made in 1940 by the width of a lead line. Something about those pages was wrong. She did not say it out loud. Not there. Not with a woman in scrubs 3 feet away and a camera in the corner of the ceiling. Okay, she said instead, and she made her voice very calm. Okay, I believe you. What are you going to do? Elena kissed her brother's forehead. Something incredibly stupid, she said, and you are going to live with it. She signed at 3:14 in the morning. The pen was heavy and black, and it scratched. Raphael Count signed in beneath her. A woman named Sylvie Marchand appeared from somewhere with a notary stamp, pressed it into the page without a flicker of expression, and left again. That was all it took. A scratch, a stamp, a woman walking out of a room. We marry in 2 weeks, Raphael said, capping his pen. City Hall, minimal witnesses. You will move into the Garden District house tomorrow. Your lease will be settled at 3 times the buyout. I have a job. Restoration, yes. Stained glass. St. Roch, the Marini Chapel, and 11 months on the Ursuline windows. He said it without looking up. Do you enjoy it? Elena's skin went cold. How do you know that? Do you enjoy it, Miss Vance? I love it. Then keep it, Raphael said. I have no interest in making you miserable. Bored, possibly. Furious, certainly. Not miserable. He stood and buttoned his jacket, and for a moment he looked less like a man who had just bought a year of her life and more like a very tired 65-year-old who had been up all night. Gabriel will drive you home to pack. On. She found him on the balcony at the Garden District house near dawn, and she did not know why she walked out there instead of locking her door. Maybe because she had not slept. Maybe because if she was alone for one more minute, she was going to start screaming and not be able to stop. I want you to know something, Elena said. Go on. I'm going to fulfill this contract, every line of it. I'll stand next to you, I'll smile at your people, and when the time comes, I'll do what I agreed to do. She kept her eyes on the street below. But I will never pretend this is anything other than what it is. You don't get my affection thrown in as a bonus. That was not on any page I signed. Raphael was quiet for a moment. Then he said, You will crave me. Elena turned and stared at him. Excuse me, not my body. He was looking out at the city, not at her. You are 27 years old, and you have been the only adult in your family since you were 16. You have never once in your life had someone standing between you and the next disaster. You have been the wall. That is exhausting in a way people who have not done it do not understand. Don't. One day something will go wrong and you will not have to solve it alone, and it will feel like taking off a bag you have carried so long you forgot it was on you. He finally looked at her. That is what you will crave, Miss Vance, not me. The version of your life where you get to put it down. And when you feel it, you will hate yourself for it, and you will come find me anyway. Elena's hands were shaking on the railing. You're wrong, she said. I am frequently wrong. Say you're wrong. I have not been wrong about a person, Raphael Castellani said, in 40 years. He set his glass down and went inside, and Elena stood out there alone as the sky over New Orleans started to go gray. She did not think about him. She thought about 4 signatures that were identical down to the last hair of the last stroke, and about a brother who swore on their mother, and about the fact that in her entire career, she had never once seen a human hand repeat itself perfectly. Machines repeated themselves perfectly. Copies did. And somewhere in that house, in a folder that a dying man had slid down a bar toward her, was the proof that the debt she had just sold a year of her life to erase might never have existed at all. She did not sleep that night, and by 7 in the morning, somebody had already unpacked her duffel bag. Elena found her clothes hanging in a closet the size of her old bedroom, and beside them things she had never owned. Dresses, blazers, shoes in exactly her size, which meant somebody had measured her foot, which meant somebody had been in her apartment before she ever opened that door. She stood there holding a cream silk blouse that cost more than her monthly rent and felt something in her chest go hard and cold. Mrs. Castellane. The woman in the doorway was in her 60s, gray hair pinned back, hands folded. It's Vance. For 2 more weeks, yes. The woman did not blink. Odette Fontaine, I run this house. Breakfast is at 7:30. You are not required to attend, but I would suggest it. Why, Tom? Because he will sit there until you do, and he has meetings at 9, and he will not tell you that, and he will not eat. Elena stared at her. Is that supposed to make me feel sorry for him? No, Odette said. It is supposed to tell you what kind of man you are living with. You can decide the rest yourself. She turned to go, then stopped. Miss Vance, one more thing. Whatever you find in this house, and you will find things, do not go to the police with it. Not because of him. Her voice dropped. Because of the people who would find out you went before the police ever did. Then she was gone, and Elena stood in a closet full of another woman's life, with her heart going sideways. Breakfast was worse than she expected because it was so ordinary. Raphael was reading an actual newspaper folded into quarters, coffee cooling at his elbow. He looked up when she came in, and something eased slightly in his face, and she hated that she noticed. You did not sleep, he said. Neither did you. No, he set the paper down. Coffee? You're grinding it too fine. He paused with the pot in his hand. Excuse me. Your coffee, it's over-extracted. You're going to get bitter every single time, and you're going to keep drinking it because nobody in this house is allowed to tell you anything. Elena crossed to the counter, adjusted the grinder 2 clicks, and started over without asking. My mother did this. It was the one luxury she could afford that didn't require an apology. She poured a cup and set it in front of him. He drank it, actually stopped and tasted it the way he probably read a balance sheet. Better, he said. I know. Something moved at the corner of his mouth. Do you want anything, Miss Vance? Anything at all? Ask me now while I am in a good mood because it happens roughly twice a year. I want the file. The good mood evaporated. Which file? The loan documents. My brother's signatures. The originals. She kept her voice level. You want me to accept that Theo did this? Fine. Then let me understand how a kid who reconciles freight invoices moved $3.4 million. Let me see how he did it so I can stop asking myself at 3 in the morning. Raphael studied her over the rim of the cup for a long moment. You will not like what you find. I already don't like anything. No, he said slowly. I will have Sylvie send them up. And Elena said thank you and buttered a piece of toast and did not let one single muscle in her face move because she had just gotten a dying mobster to hand her the only weapon in the building, and she needed him to think it was grief. I gave her a workroom in the north wing. She did not ask for it. She walked in on the 3rd day and found a bench, a light box, a set of lead knives still in their paper, and windows facing exactly the right direction. North light, steady all day, never shifts color. The only people who knew that mattered were people who worked glass. Elena stood in the doorway with her hands shaking and did not go in for 11 minutes. You had someone research me, she said that night in the library. Raphael did not look up from his papers. Yes. How long? 9 weeks before I sent Gabriel to your door. 9 weeks, her voice went thin. You spent 9 weeks studying me before you decided which door to knock on. I spent 9 weeks studying 4 women, he said. And now he did look up, and there was nothing apologetic in it at all. You were the 3rd one I considered. I am not going to lie to you about that either. Why me? Because the other 3 would have said yes in the first 60 seconds. Elena sat down slowly. You wanted somebody who would fight you. I wanted somebody who would survive me, Raphael said. There is a difference, and it is the entire difference. They married on a Thursday at 2 in the afternoon, and it took 11 minutes. Gabriel and Odette witnessed. Sylvie Marchand stood at the back with her arms crossed, like she was watching a deposition. The officiant had done 4 of these already that day and read the vows the way people read a grocery list. When it came to the kiss, Raphael turned toward her and then stopped. He waited. He actually stood there 65 years old in front of witnesses and waited for her to close the distance because of a clause he had written in his own hand at 3 in the morning. Elena felt something crack in her chest that she was not prepared for. She kissed him. 3 seconds, dry and brief. But she was the one who moved, and both of them knew it, and Sylvie Marchand saw it from the back of the room, and her eyebrows went up about a 1/4 inch. At the dinner afterward, Sylvie caught her arm in the hallway. You're good at this. At what? At playing it. The lawyer had silver streaked through black hair and the bone structure of someone who had never lost an argument. Most of them cry in the car on the way over. You held his hand at the right moment and let go before it looked desperate. That's instinct, honey. That can't be taught. I'm not playing anything. That's the part that worries me. Sylvie leaned in. Can I give you some advice? Can I stop you? I like you. She smiled without warmth. Here it is. Rafael Castellani is the most controlled man I have ever met, and control is not the same thing as safety. He kept every promise he made me in 19 years. He also killed a man I had dinner with in June and came to my house in July and asked about my daughter's college applications. Her eyes were flat. Both things are true. Do not let this house make you forget the second one just because it keeps showing you the first. Elena's mouth was dry. Why are you telling me this? Because you're the first person in 20 years who made him change a document, Sylvie said. And I want to know if that's going to save you or get you killed. By him. Then 4 days later, Julian Castellane came for dinner. He arrived early, unannounced with wine that cost $800, and he kissed Elena on both cheeks like they had known each other for years. So this is her. He was 38, beautiful in a way that made you check your wallet, and his smile reached exactly as far as his cheekbones and stopped. Uncle, she's not what I expected. What did you expect? Elena said. Honestly, someone stupider. Julianne, it's a compliment, Uncle. Relax. He poured wine. Everybody assumed you'd buy somebody easy. You bought somebody with a career and a rap sheet of opinions. That's not a wife, that's a hire. Sit down, Raphael said, and it was not loud, and Julian sat down immediately. Over dinner, Elena watched them and understood something that made her food go tasteless. Julian deferred perfectly, said all the right things, refilled his uncle's glass before it was empty, laughed at the right beats, called him uncle 12 separate times. And his hands were shaking. Not from fear. Elena had spent her whole life reading her father's hands across a kitchen table. And she knew the difference between a man who was afraid and a man who was holding something in with both fists. Julian Castellane was furious. All the way down, all the time. And he had been doing it so long he did not even know it showed. So when's the baby coming? He asked over dessert pleasantly. The table went silent. Julianne, Raphael said, it's a fair question. It's the whole point, isn't it? He turned to Elena, still smiling. Sorry, was that rude? Family gets to be rude. It's fine, Elena said. See, she's fine. He raised his glass. To the heir. May he arrive before the funeral. Raphael did not move, did not blink, and the temperature in the room dropped about 15 degrees. Julian laughed and drank and started talking about the saints. Later at the door, he took Elena's hand and held it slightly too long. He's going to tell you what he did, he said quietly. He always tells them eventually. It's his version of a confession, except he never asks for absolution, he just makes you carry it. His eyes were very clear. When he does ask him about the window. What window? But Julian was already walking to his car. Opum. Raphael told her 9 days later, and she did not have to ask. He had been drinking, which she never seen, and she came into the library at midnight to find him sitting with the lights off. Sit down, Elena. It was the first time he had used her name without the last one attached. My father came from Sicily in 1949, he said. He taught my brother and me one sentence that explains everything else. Pain is just another form of interest. Vincent believed it. I understood it. That is the difference between us, and it killed him. She sat. Vincent ran the violent half. I ran the money. It worked for 22 years. His voice did not change at all. In 2007, he insulted a man from Houston who did not take insults. They put a device under the car in our driveway. He stopped. Elena waited. It was not Vincent's car, Raphael said. It was mine, and I was not in it. The room was so quiet she could hear the clock. Camille was 7 months pregnant, he said. We had a name picked. I have never said it out loud to another person, and I am not going to start tonight. Raphael. Vincent wanted a war, total, every judge, every cop, every name, burn the whole thing down and take 400 families with it because his pride had been touched. He turned the glass slowly in his hands. I told him no. He told me I had gone soft because I was grieving. He was going to do it anyway. He was going to do it that week. What did you do? I killed him, Raphael said. Elena did not move. Carbon monoxide, his car, his garage late enough that he was too drunk to understand what was happening. I closed the door and I stood outside and I waited until it was finished, and then I called it in as a suicide, and the coroner wrote grief and alcohol, and nobody asked me a single question. He finally looked at her. I regret it every day of my life, and if it happened again tomorrow, I would do exactly the same thing. That is who you married. I told you I would be honest, and I am not going to be honest only about the parts that are easy. Elena's hands were ice. There's something you're not saying. There is a great deal I am not saying. No, she leaned forward. Something specific. Julianne told me to ask you about a window. And Rafael Castellon, who had just described murdering his own brother without his voice, moving 1 inch, went completely white. He said that to you? At the door, he said. What exactly did he say? He said you'd confess eventually, and when you did ask about the window. Elena's heart was slamming. Raphael, what window? He set the glass down very carefully like it might go off. Vincent's house had a window over the garage, he said, the boy's bedroom. Oh, God. I was 12 years old. Raphael's jaw worked. I did not know he was home. I checked the house. I checked it twice. His mother had taken him to her sister's in Metairie, and I confirmed it with 2 people, and he was standing at that window at 1 o'clock in the morning, and he watched me stand in his driveway for 40 minutes and do nothing while his father died. Elena put a hand over her mouth. He never said a word, Raphael said. Not to his mother, not to the police, not to me. For 18 years, that boy has eaten dinner at my table and called me uncle and asked me to teach him the business, and he has never once mentioned it, and I have never once been able to ask. Then why is he still alive? Because he is my brother's son, Raphael said, and I have taken enough from that family. He hates you. Yes. He has hated you for 18 years, and you let him inside your organization anyway. Yes. That's not mercy. Elena was on her feet now without deciding to be. That's guilt. You've been paying him an access because you can't look him in the face, and now he's 38, and he's been standing next to everything you own for 2 decades. Raphael said nothing. He was going to inherit, she said slowly. Wasn't he? Before me, before this, everyone assumed. Everyone assumed. And then you announced you were having a child. Yes, Elena sat back down because her legs stopped working. He's going to kill me, she said. He is going to try something, Raphael said. It will not be that direct. Julian does not break things. He arranges them so they break themselves. And then quieter. That is the part he learned from me. She went to the workroom that night at 2 in the morning because she could not be in a bed. Sylvie's courier had left the file box on the bench 4 days earlier, and Elena had not opened it. She had been afraid of what she would find. She had been more afraid of what she would not find. Now she pulled the 4 loan documents out and laid them side by side on the light box and turned it on. And there it was. She looked at it for a full minute without breathing. Then she got a loop. Then she got a ruler. Theo's signature. 4 times, and on all 4, the loop of the T closed at exactly the same angle. The pressure break in the V fell at exactly the same point. The little upward drag at the end of the last letter, the one he did because he thought it looked professional, terminated at an identical distance from the printed line. Elena had spent 9 years learning to date glass repairs by the width of a lead line. She could tell you which of 2 solder joints was made 40 years apart by a human hand. No hand does the same thing twice, not 4 times, not to a tenth of a millimeter. She sat down on the floor of that workroom with $3 million of forged paper glowing on the bench above her and started laughing. And then the laugh turned into something else entirely, and she pressed both hands over her mouth so nobody would hear. Because if the signatures were copies, then the debt was invented. And if the debt was invented, then her brother had never owed anyone anything. And if her brother had never owed anyone anything, then Elena Vance had not been bought. She had been placed. Somebody had built a $3.4 million lie for the sole purpose of putting her in this house. And that somebody had known exactly what Rafael Castellon needed, exactly when he would need it, and exactly how a woman who had raised her brother since she was 16 would answer a door at 3 in the morning, which meant they had known about the diagnosis, which meant they were inside. Elena wiped her face, turned off the light box, and put every page back in the box in the exact order she had found it. Then she went downstairs, made coffee at 4 in the morning, and sat at the kitchen island until the sky went gray, working out how she was going to walk into that library and tell a dying killer that the one thing he had never questioned in his life was a forgery. And underneath that, quieter and much worse, the thought she could not get rid of. Nobody was holding her here anymore. Nobody had ever been holding her here, and she was still sitting in his kitchen. He cried for a long time, and nobody in that room told him to stop. When he could finally speak, he did not say anything to Elena. He leaned over the bassinet and said very quietly in a voice she had never heard him use, "Camille, your name was your grandmother's, and it was also someone else's, and I will tell you about both of them when you can understand it, and I am not going to lie to you about either one." Elena, wrecked and stitched and running on no sleep, said, "That's the worst first sentence anybody has ever said to a baby." It is honest. "She's 4 minutes old, Raphael." "Then she has 4 minutes of it," he said, "and I have not wasted any of them." And Elena started laughing, and it hurt so badly she had to hold her stomach. The federal thing did not go away because a baby was born. It came in February in the form of two agents at the gate and a subpoena the size of a phone book. And Sylvie Marchand sat at their kitchen table for 11 straight hours, going through what Raphael had voluntarily handed over in December and what he had not. "They can build a case," she said finally. "I know. Raphael, they can build a real one, not the compliance stuff. The 2007 stuff, if they get one witness who was on that street, then they get it. Would you listen to yourself? Sylvie," he put down his cup, "I have spent 40 years arranging things so that nothing ever reached me. It worked. That is the problem. It worked so well that a 12-year-old boy watched me from a window, and I built an entire life out of not looking up." He glanced toward the hallway where a monitor sat on a side table transmitting the sound of a 6-week-old breathing. "I am not doing it again. Build me the best defense you can inside the truth. That is the only place I am willing to stand now." Sylvie stared at him for a long moment. "You know what the worst part is?" she said. 19 years I've been trying to get you to say a sentence like that, and you had to buy a wife to do it. I did not buy her." "No," Sylvie agreed. "You didn't. That's the only reason any of this is survivable." Julien pleaded out in April. He took 18 years and he did not put a single name in his statement. Not Raphael's, not Gabriel's, not the two dock managers who could have been ruined in a paragraph. Elena drove to Oakdale in June because she could not stop thinking about it. She went alone. Raphael did not ask her not to, which she noticed, and which cost him something. Julien came into the visitation room thinner and calmer and looked at her for a while before he sat down. "You didn't bring her," he said. "No, good, don't ever." He folded his hands. "Why are you here?" "Because you could have taken him down with you, and you didn't." "I thought about it every day for 4 months." "So what stopped you?" Julian looked at the table. He said, "Vincent," he said. Elena waited. "That's it. That's the whole thing. 18 years in a federal indictment and 19 counts, and he said my father's name out loud in a room with other people in it, and I found out I had built my entire life around a sentence." He laughed badly. "I'm not forgiving him. I want you to understand that. I will never forgive him, and I don't want him to think I did." "He doesn't." "Good. He writes to you. Every week." Julian's jaw tightened. "I don't open them." "He knows." "Then why does he keep sending them?" "Because he says the point isn't whether you read them," Elena said. "The point is that you never again spend one day wondering whether he was going to say something." Julian did not answer, but when she stood up, he said, "Tell him." "Tell him what?" "Just tell him I asked how she was." Ravel did not go to prison. He came very close. It took 2 years, a plea on 3 financial counts, an 18-month suspended sentence, forfeiture of 4 properties, and a consent decree that put a federal monitor inside every company he owned for a decade. The day it finished, he came home and sat down on the kitchen floor with his back against the cabinets, still in the suit, and Camille, 20 months old, walked over and put a cracker on his knee. "Thank you," he said seriously. She took it back. "That is fair," he said. Elena stood in the doorway and watched a man who had been the most feared name on the New Orleans River get robbed by a toddler and had to leave the room for a second. The organization did not survive it intact. That was the truth, and nobody in the house pretended or otherwise. Some men left. 2 went to Duvernay, and one of them came back 6 months later asking for work. And Gabriel put him out on the street personally. The doxed contracts were restructured under the monitor. Half the old revenue simply ceased to exist because it had never been legal in the first place. 900 families became 600 families. Raphael took that harder than the sentence. 300 households, he said one night. I did that. Julienne did that. Julienne lit the match on a building I filled with paper for 40 years. And the 600, Elena sat down across from him. The ones who still eat. Who did that? He did not have an answer. That's what I thought, she said. She started the foundation in the third year, and she named it after nobody. Raphael had wanted Camille on the letterhead. Elena refused. Why, Boa? Because I'm not putting my daughter's name on money that came out of the river, she said. She gets to decide what her name means. That was the whole point of all of it. So it was called the St. Roch Trust after the first window she ever put her hands on, and it did exactly one thing. It restored glass. Churches, schools, the old Creole theaters on Rampart that had been boarded since Katrina. 11 buildings the first year, 26 the second. It was, Sylvie observed dryly, the least imaginative money laundering she had ever seen in her professional life. It isn't laundering, Elena said. It's the opposite. Laundering makes dirty money look clean. I'm taking clean money and turning it into something nobody can ever take back. You can seize an account. You cannot seize a roof, so shit. Sylvie thought about that for a second. Okay, she said, that's better. Theo came back into their lives slowly, and it was not easy. For a year and a half, he could not be in the same room as Raphael Castellani, and Raphael never once asked him to be. He simply left. Every time. Family dinner, birthday, Christmas, the moment Theo walked in, Raphael found somewhere else in that enormous house to be, and he did it without comment for 18 months. It was Theo who broke first. He walked into the library one night in December with a beer in each hand and put one down on the desk and said, "You beat me." "I had you beaten," Raphael said. "There is a difference, and it is not in my favor. I approved it. I chose the man. I watched the video before it was sent to make sure it was frightening enough." Theo sat down. "Why are you telling me that?" "Because your sister has a rule in this house about not giving people the version they can survive." Theo drank about half the beer without saying anything. "I hate you," he said. "That is correct. But she's happy." He turned the bottle in his hands. "And I spent 2 years waiting to catch her pretending, and she isn't. So I don't know what to do with that." "Neither do I," Raphael said. "I have not known what to do with it since the morning she fixed my coffee." Theo laughed despite himself and hated that too. They did not become friends. But he stopped leaving, and 4 years later, when Theo married Marisol at a chapel on Esplanade, it was Raphael who paid for the reception, and it was Raphael who sat in the back row and did not give a toast, because he had been asked not to, and because he understood exactly why. The health thing never went away. That was the part nobody talked about at the christening or the school runs or the Sunday dinners. Every 90 days, Raphael Castellane went and sat in that office with his hands on his knees, and every 90 days, Elena went with him, and every single time she felt it in her chest for the entire 20 minutes. At year 4, the doctors stopped saying remission and started saying cautiously durable. At year 5, the oncologist said, "I would not have bet on this." "Nobody did," Raphael said. "Mr. Castellane, I want to be clear. This is not a cure." "I have never once misunderstood you," he said. "I have simply outlived you being right." In the car, Elena did not speak for a while. "He gave you 4 years," she said finally. 5.5 ago. "Yes. You told me on a balcony that you had never been wrong about a person in 40 years. I remember." "You were wrong about me," Elena said. "That night, you said I'd crave you." Raphael looked out the window. "I was not wrong," he said. "I was early." "Excuse me. You did not crave me, Elena. You never have. And I have made my peace with it." He turned to her. "You craved the version of your life where you were allowed to put it down. And you found out that I could not give you that because in the end, you carried me too. You have carried all of us. The only thing I ever actually did was stop being one more thing you had to lift alone." Elena did not answer him for a long time. "That's the closest you've ever come to an apology," she said. "Yes. Keep going." "I would rather not." "Raphael, I took a year of your life at gunpoint over a debt that never existed," he said. "There is no arrangement that fixes it. There is no amount. I have never once told myself I earned any of this, and I never will. And if you left tomorrow, I would not have a single word to say in my own defense." His voice was rough. "That is the true version. I have been carrying it in this car every day for 5 years. Elena reached over and took his hand. Good, she said. Keep carrying it. That's the price. I know. And Raphael? Yes. I'm still here, she said. Every morning for 5 years I've chosen it again. Not once because of paper. You don't get absolution, but you get that. Marco Vance Castellane was born the following spring, and by the time he was 3, he was the loudest human being any of them had ever encountered. Camille at 6 ran the house. She ran Gabriel, who at 59 had begun carrying juice boxes in a coat that had previously carried other things. She ran Odette, who pretended otherwise. She ran her father completely and without effort, and the single funniest thing about the entire Castellane operation, according to Sylvie Marchand, was watching 2 federal monitors sit in a conference room and wait 11 minutes because Mr. Castellane was on the phone being told about a lost tooth. He was a legend, Sylvie said. He's still a legend, Elena said, for different reasons. Better ones. In the 7th year, the St. Roch Trust finished the great window at the old Ursuline Chapel, the one Elena had been quoted 11 months on back when she was 27, and living over a laundromat and had never met anybody who could pay for it. She took Raphael there alone at 7 in the morning before anyone else. He stood in front of it for a long time. Something is wrong with it, he said. No. Elena, I can see the seams. The lead lines are visible. There is a crack running through the blue that you did not close. That's not a crack. That's the original break from 1911. And no, I didn't close it. Why not? She looked up at it. Because if I close it, she said, the light doesn't come through there anymore. Raphael turned to look at her. That's it, Elena said. That's the whole trade. You can hide the break and have a smooth surface that nobody can see through, or you can leave it and let the light in. And everybody who walks in here for the next 200 years will know exactly where this window was damaged. She shrugged. I've never once met a piece of glass worth looking at that didn't have a repair in it. Not one. He did not say anything. That's why I stayed, she said, in case you've been wondering for 7 years. It wasn't love, not at the start. It was that I finally met somebody who didn't try to tell me he wasn't broken. Raphael Castellane, 65 when he met her, and 72 standing in that chapel, put his hand over his mouth and stood there. I have wondered, he said every day. I know you have. Every single day, Elena. Then stop, she said. The contract was in a drawer in the North Wing workroom. Both halves taped back together because Camille had found them at 4 and asked what they were, and Elena had decided on the spot that this family did not hide paper. She told them the truth when they were old enough. Both of them. All of it. The door at 3 in the morning. The video of their Uncle Theo. The forgery. The garage. The window over a driveway in 2007, and the boy who stood at it. Camille was 14 when she got the whole thing, and she did not speak for 2 days, and on the 3rd day she came downstairs and said to her father, You did that to Mom. Yes. You put a man in a chair and filmed it. Yes. And you're not going to make an excuse. No, Raphael said. I am not. Camille looked at him for a long, long time. She had his eyes exactly. Okay, she said. Then I'm going to be angry for a while. You should be. And I'm still going to love you, and I'm going to hate that I do. That, Raphael said, the most Castellane thing anyone has ever said in this house. She went to Oakdale herself at 17 without telling either of them and sat across from a man who had served 14 years and said, I'm Camille. I read the letters, all of them. He kept copies. And Julian Castellane, 45 years old, put his head down on the table and wept in front of a girl who had never done anything to him and did not owe him a thing. He died in the 11th year in March at home, which nobody had ever thought possible, and he was not afraid, and Elena was holding his hand. The last thing he said to her was not romantic. He was too tired for that. He said, the coffee. What about it? 2 clicks coarser, he said. You were right. I've been right for 11 years. Yes, Raphael said and closed his eyes, and that was all. She buried him beside Camille Castellane, the first one, and beside Vincent Antonio, whose name was on the stone because Elena had insisted, and because Julianne, out on supervised release, 8 months, had stood in the cemetery in a borrowed suit and said in front of everyone, That's my father, he belongs here. Afterward, Elena went to the chapel alone. She stood in front of the great window and looked at the crack in the blue that she had refused to close, and she thought about a woman of 27 in her mother's sweatshirt opening a door at 3 in the morning to a life she never chose. She had been placed there. placed like a piece on a board by a boy who had waited 18 years at a window. But the leaving had been hers, and the coming back had been hers, and every single morning for 11 years the staying had been hers. That was the only thing that ever mattered, because a contract can put a woman in a room. It can put a ring on her hand and a name on her mail and a house around her life. But it cannot make her walk back through the gate in the rain, and it cannot make her hold a dying man's hand and argue with him about coffee, and it cannot manufacture the 1,000 ordinary mornings where she looked at the door and did not take it. Elena Vance never got to choose how her story started. She chose every single day of how it ended, and no one on this earth ever took that from her again. He cried for a long time, and nobody in that room told him to stop. When he could finally speak, he did not say anything to Elena at all. He leaned over the bassinet and said in a voice she had never heard him use in her life, "Camille, your name belonged to your grandmother, and it also belonged to someone else. And I am going to tell you about both of them when you are old enough, and I am not going to lie to you about either one." That, Elena said, is the worst first sentence anybody has ever said to a baby. It is honest. She's 6 minutes old. Then she has 6 honest minutes, Raphael said, which is more than most people in this family ever got. And Elena started laughing, and it hurt so badly she had to hold her stomach with both hands. For 11 days after that, nothing happened, and it was the best 11 days of her life. And she understood, even while she was inside them, that she was being allowed to borrow something. On the 12th day, Sylvie Marchand walked into the house without calling first, and Elena knew before the woman opened her mouth. "They want Raphael in front of a grand jury," Sylvie said. "He already gave them everything. He gave them the compliance file. Julien's forgeries, the Duvernay leaked the wire structure, all of it." Sylvie set her bag down and did not sit. "That's the part he controlled. The problem is what they found underneath it. Once you hand federal prosecutors a 40-year-old organization's paperwork and say, 'Help yourselves,' they do not stop at the pages you circled." "Say it." "April 9th, 2007, Sylvie said. "They reopened Vincent Castellane." Raphael in the doorway with a bottle in his hand because it was the 2 o'clock feeding did not react at all. "On what?" he said. "On a neighbor's insurance claim from 2007 about a vehicle in the driveway that night. It went nowhere then because nobody cared then. Somebody cares now." Sylvie's voice was flat. "They cannot make a case on a claim form. They can make one on a witness. There is exactly one person alive who can put you on that street at 1 in the morning, and he is sitting in federal custody facing 19 counts, and they have already offered him everything he could possibly want to say your name." The room was silent except for the baby. "How long has he had the offer?" Elena said. "Since Tuesday." "That's 4 days." "Yes." "He's had 4 days," Elena said, "and he hasn't taken it." "No," Sylvie said, "and I have practiced law for 26 years, and I cannot tell you why." Raphael did not sleep that night, and at 4 in the morning, Elena found him in the library with the monitor on the desk beside him, listening to his daughter breathe. "You should be terrified," she said. "I am. You don't look it." "I have been terrified for 18 years, Raphael said. "This is simply the version with a date on it. He won't do it. He should do it." He turned to look at her. "Elena, understand me. If our positions were reversed, I would have taken that deal in 90 seconds. Not for revenge, for arithmetic. 18 years is an unsurvivable number for a man of 38, and he can buy it down to 6 by saying 4 words. There is no version of Julian Castellane who does not take it because I built the man who is sitting in that cell, and I would take it. Then why hasn't he?" Raphael did not answer, and Elena realized he was afraid of the answer. She found out 3 days later, and it was not from Julian. The call came at 9 in the morning from a number in Metairie, and the woman on the other end said, "Is this the wife? Who is this Rosalie Castellane?" The woman said. "Vincent's widow. I would like to come to the house, and I would like Raphael to be the one who opens the door." Elena's hand went cold on the phone. "Why now?" "Because my son has stopped answering me," Rosalie said, "and I have finally worked out what that means." She was 71 years old, and she did not take off her coat. She stood in the front hall and looked at Raphael Castellane, and Elena watched a man who had faced federal agents without blinking take an actual step backward. "Rosalie, don't." The woman's voice was thin and absolutely steady. "You are going to stand there, and you are going to listen, and then I am going to leave and we will never do this again. All right. I knew, Rosalie said. Raphael did not move. I knew in 2007. I knew in the church. I knew when they handed me the folded flag of a coroner's report that said grief and alcohol. Her chin came up. I was married to your brother for 22 years. Vincent could not have killed himself if he had been on fire. He did not have it in him. He thought too much of himself. Rosalie. So I sat in my kitchen in the fall of 2007, and I worked out what had happened, and I made a decision, and I have never told a living soul what it was until this morning. Her hands were shaking now. I decided not to lose the other one. What? Julianne was 12, she said. He had lost his father, and if I said what I believed out loud, he lost his uncle in the same year, and I had no money and no name of my own, and a boy who had stopped speaking, and you came to the funeral, and you paid the mortgage, and you did not ask me for one single thing. So I made my choice, and I kept it for 18 years. Her voice finally cracked. But God help me, Raphael, I let him hate you. I never said your name to him with anything but ice in it. Every Christmas, every graduation, every time he came home from your office, proud of himself, I looked at him a certain way. I never said one word and I taught him the whole thing anyway. Elena felt the floor move. You knew he was at the window, she said. Rosalie turned to her. I found him at 3 in the morning still standing there, she said. He never told me what he saw. I never asked. And for 18 years, the two of us lived in a house with that in it, and I told myself that was mercy. Her mouth twisted. It was not mercy. It was the most vicious thing a mother has ever done to a child, and I did it slowly enough that I never had to admit it. Rosalie, Raphael said, why are you here? Because they have offered my son a deal, she said, and he has not taken it, and I have called him 11 times and he will not pick up, and I finally understood why this morning at about 4 o'clock. Why? Because he is 38 years old and he is doing the exact thing I did, Rosalie said. He is protecting the family by staying silent about a killing, and he has no idea. He learned it from me, and I cannot let him spend 18 years in a cell repeating my worst decision. She reached into her coat and put a folded document on the hall table. I have written a statement, she said. It says that I believed from 2007 that my husband's death was not a suicide, that I chose not to report it, and that I concealed it for 18 years. Her voice did not waver. Sylvie Marchand can tell you what that does. It makes me a witness with a motive. It puts my credibility on trial instead of my son's, and it gives them a mess instead of a case. Rosalie, that is obstruction. They will charge you. I am 71, she said. Let them. I will not allow. You do not get to allow anything, Rosalie Castellane said. You took my husband. You do not also get to take my one chance to stop being the woman who watched. That is mine. And she walked out, and neither of them could move for a full minute. The statement did exactly what she said it would do. It did not clear Raphael. Nothing ever cleared Raphael. What it did was turn a clean line of proof into a swamp, and prosecutors are people, and people go where the ground is solid. The 2007 file went quiet in September. Julian pleaded out in April to 19 federal counts and took 18 years and never said his uncle's name. And when Sylvie asked him at the last possible moment whether he understood, he was leaving 6 years on the table, he said, according to her only one sentence. He said my father's name in a room with people in it. Tell him that is the receipt. Dumb. Ravel did not walk free either. It took 2 years of plea on 3 financial counts, an 18-month suspended sentence, forfeiture of 4 properties and a federal monitor inside every company he owned for a decade. The day it ended, he came home in the suit and sat down on the kitchen floor with his back against the cabinets, and Camille, 20 months old, walked over and set a cracker on his knee. Thank you, he said gravely. She took it back. That is fair, he said, and Elena had to leave the room. The organization did not survive intact. 900 families became 600. Men left, 2 went to Duvernay, and 1 came crawling back, and Gabriel put him on the street himself. Raphael took the 300 harder than the sentence. I did that, he said one night. Julianne did that. Julianne lit a match in a building I spent 40 years filling with paper. And the 600 who still eat, Elena said. Who did that? He had no answer, and she let him sit in it. She built the foundation in the 3rd year and refused to put her daughter's name on it. Why not, Raphael said. Because that money came off the river, and she gets to decide what her own name means. That was the entire point of everything. So it was called the St. Roch Trust, and it did one thing only. It restored glass. Churches, schools, the boarded theaters on Rampart, 11 buildings the first year, 26 the second. It is the least imaginative laundering I have seen in my career, Sylvie observed. It's the opposite of laundering, Elena said. Laundering makes dirty money look clean. I take clean money and turn it into something nobody can take back. You can seize an account. You cannot seize a roof. Sylvie thought about that. Fine, she said. That's better. Theo could not be in a room with Raphael for a year and a half, and Raphael never once asked him to be. He simply left. Every dinner, every birthday without comment. It was Theo who broke. He walked into the library with 2 beers, put one on the desk, and said, "You beat me. I had you beaten. There is a difference, and it is not in my favor. I chose the man. I watched the video before it was sent to make sure it was frightening enough." Theo sat down slowly. "Why would you tell me that?" "Because your sister has a rule in this house about not giving people the version they can survive." Theo drank half the bottle. "I hate you," he said. "That is correct. But she's happy, and I spent 2 years waiting to catch her, pretending, and she isn't, and I don't know what to do with that." "Neither do I," Raphael said. "I have not known since the morning she fixed my coffee." They never became friends. But he stopped leaving, and 4 years later at Theo's wedding on Esplanade, Raphael paid for everything, sat in the last row, and gave no toast because he had been asked not to, and because he understood exactly why. Every 90 days, he sat in that office with his hands on his knees, and every 90 days, Elena went with him. At year 4, they stopped saying remission and started saying carefully durable. At year 5, the oncologist said, "I would not have bet on this." Nobody did. "Mr. Castellane, this is not a cure." "I have never misunderstood you," Raphael said. "I have simply outlived you being right." In the car afterward, Elena said, "You told me on a balcony that you'd never been wrong about a person in 40 years. I remember. You were wrong about me. You said I'd crave you." "I was not wrong," he said. "I was early." "Excuse me? You never craved me. You never have. And I made my peace with that a long time ago." He turned. "You craved the version of your life where you were allowed to put it down. And you found out I could not give you that because in the end, you carried me too. You have carried every person in this house. The only thing I ever did was stop being one more weight you lifted alone." Elena looked at him for a while. "That's the closest you have ever come to an apology." "Yes. Keep going." "I took a year of your life at gunpoint over a debt that never existed," Raphael said. "There is no arrangement that fixes that. There is no number. I have never once told myself I earned any of this, and I never will. And if you left tomorrow, I would not have a single word to say in my own defense." She took his hand. "Good," she said. "Keep carrying it. That's the price." "I know. And I'm still here. 11 years of mornings, all of them mine. You don't get absolution, Raphael, but you get that." Marco Vance Castellane arrived the following spring and was by universal agreement the loudest human being any of them had ever met. Camille at 6 ran the house. She ran Gabriel, who at 59 had begun carrying juice boxes in a coat that had previously carried other things. She ran Odette, who denied it. And Sylvie swore the funniest thing she ever witnessed in 30 years of criminal law was 2 federal monitors waiting 11 minutes in a conference room because Mr. Castellane was on the phone being told about a lost tooth. At 14, Camille was told the whole truth. The door at 3 in the morning, the video of her uncle, the forgery, the garage, the window over a driveway in 2007. She did not speak for 2 days. On the third day, she came downstairs and said, "You did that to Mom." "Yes. And you're not going to make it an excuse." "No." She looked at him a long time with his own gray eyes. "Then I'm going to be angry for a while." "You should be. And I'm still going to love you, and I'm going to hate that I do." That, Raphael said, the most Castellane sentence ever spoken in this house. At 17, she drove to Oakdale without telling either of them and sat across from a man who had served 14 years and said, "I'm Camille. I read your letters." He kept copies of every one. And Julien Castellane, 45 years old, put his head down on that table and wept in front of a girl who owed him absolutely nothing. Each hour, Raphael died in the 11th year in March at home, which no doctor had ever thought possible. The last thing he said was not romantic. He was too tired for that. The coffee. What about it? 2 clicks coarser, he said. You were right. I've been right for 11 years. Yes, Raphael said and closed his eyes, and that was all. They buried him beside the first Camille and beside Vincent Antonio, whose name was on the stone because Elena insisted, and because Julienne, 8 months into supervised release, stood in a borrowed suit and said in front of everyone, "That is my father, he belongs here." And because Rosalie Castellane, who had served 14 months for obstruction and never once complained about a day of it, stood next to her son and held his arm and finally at 79 stopped watching. Afterward, Elena went to the Ursuline Chapel alone and stood under the great window the trust had finished in the 7th year. Raphael had asked her once why she left the 1911 break in the blue open, because if she closed it, the light stopped coming through there. She had been placed in that story like a piece on a board by a boy who waited 18 years at a window. She had never chosen the door or the hour or the man who knocked. But the leaving had been hers. The walking back through the gate in the rain had been hers. In 11 years of ordinary mornings, every one of them, a door she looked at and did not take, had been hers alone. A contract can put a woman in a room. It cannot make her stay in it. Elena Vance never got to choose how her story began, and she chose every single day of how it ended, and no one on this earth ever took that from her again.